plus. Good morning, students. How are you all? Welcome back to the class, and today we are going to discuss about what is democracy and why democracy. Okay, so you may be having one doubt, sir, why sir jump from first chapter to second chapter directly without completing the first one. So let me clear you. Few topics are related from the first chapter to the second. That's why I taught you few points from that topic from that chapter. Okay, so don't get confused. So today we are going to see about the what is democracy and why democracy. Okay, so first we are going to see about the what is democracy. Now, definition of democracy. Okay, democracy is a form of government in which the rulers are elected by the people. If you see that democracy is a form of government in which the rulers are elected by the people. Okay, if you see, democracy is nothing else but it is a government, okay, which is formed by the people or the rulers who are elected by the people. Okay, this one, democracy means a form of government in which the rulers are elected by the people. And one chief factor common to all democracies is that the government is chosen by the people. If you see, the main common factor in democracies is the government is chosen by the people. The main thing is here, the government is chosen by the people. Okay. It is also helps students to demarcate between democratic and non-democratic governments. If you see that, it is also helps student to demarcate in the sense distinguish, okay, distinguish or differentiate between the democratic and non-democratic government. It helps the students. Okay, so let's see what is non-democratic government. From the non-democratic governments, take the example of Myanmar. If you see that one of the non-democratic government is Myanmar, where the rulers were not elected by the people. If you see that, where in Myanmar the rulers were not elected by the people. How they came into power? Those who were in charge of the army of that country took over as rulers and people had no say in the decision. If you see that, how they came in power? Because they were in charge of the army of that country and then they took over the rulers. And the people, those who are living in that country, they had nothing to say in that decision because they don't have any decision making power, because it is a non-democratic country. Okay, now dictators like your Pinochet from Chile was not elected by the people. If you see that, already we discussed about the Chile, about the Pinochet. He was a dictator and he was not elected by the people of that country. Are you getting? This is also applied to your monarchies. If you see that, the same thing applies into the monarchies as well. Now we will going to see about the features of democracy. Now we are going to see about the features of democracy. We discussed about the definition of democracy. Now we will see the features of democracy. So the first thing, the simple definition of democracy gives rise to various questions. Okay, the simple definition of democracy which gives rise various questions in our mind. If we will talk about democracy, so then many questions will come to our mind. The first question, we will see that who are the rulers in this definition? Definition in the sense democracy. If you see that, who are the rulers in this democracy? Next point, next question is, what kinds of the election constitutes a democratic election? What kind of election constitute a democratic election? The next question will arise in our mind, that is called, who are the people who can elected the rulers or get elected as rulers? Who are the people who can elect the rulers or get elected as rulers? And finally, what forms of government is a democracy? the final question is, what forms of government is a democracy? So we will going to see the first question which came to in our mind. The first one is, who are the rulers in this definition we are going to see now. So major decisions by elected leaders. Major decisions by elected leaders. Some countries like Pakistan do not follow these rules. If you see that some countries like Pakistan, they don't follow the rules. These rules they don't follow. How? If you see that in Pakistan, General Pervez Musharraf, we all knew about him. So Pervez Musharraf led a military coup in October 1999. If you see, in 1999, General Pervez Musharraf, okay, from Pakistan, he led a military coup, and what happened? He overthrew the democratically elected government and went on to become the president of the country. What he did on the in 1999, he overthrew the democratically elected government and went on to become the president of that country. Okay, although it is a democratic country, still these things are happening in that country. And in 2002, he also held a referendum in the country that granted him a 5 years extension. At that time he was president, so he was having that referendum in the sense it is constitutional power he was having, and there he granted 5 years extension for his power. He was in power again for 5 years. Now meanwhile, what happened? After passing of this legal framework order, elections were held in the national and your provisional assemblies. In national and provisional assembly, elections were held, and those who elected representatives were granted some power. Those who got elected, they granted some power with them. But if you see, but the final power rested with military officers and General Musharraf himself. If you see that those who got elected in that election, they got some power, mind my word, mark my word, some power. But the final power was rested with the military officer and General Musharraf himself. The final power, the decision making power they were having. Okay, now hence we can conclude it was not a democratic country. If we will see that here we can conclude that it was not a democratic country, because the power was not having with the people, it was rested with the military officer and the General Musharraf himself. So finally we can conclude that it was not a democratic country. And the same thing happens in many dictatorship and monarchies. If you see that the same thing happened in many dictatorship and monarchy, if you see that Chile, Ghana, Myanmar, same thing happened. So though we can conclude that in a democracy, the final decision making power must rest with those elected by the people. If you see that, we can conclude here that the democracy, okay, that in a democracy final decision making power should be rested with the people, those who are elected by the people. Okay, if you see that, we can conclude here like the power, the decision making power should be rested with the elected people who are elected by the people. Okay, so here we are going to conclude today's topic. The next topic we are going to discuss in another class. So till then, take care, stay safe.